Hello, everyone. I hope you're all well. Thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. In this episode, I will be exploring Bandura's social learning theory and explaining why and how you can incorporate it into your teaching practice. Have you ever noticed how children learn by watching others? Think about it. How often do we see children picking up skills simply by observing other people? During my placement, I was working with a nursery group where the children were learning how to fasten their buttons. One child was struggling and couldn't quite grasp the technique. However, after watching a classmate who could do it effortlessly, something clicked. Simply by observing, she was able to replicate the action perfectly. Now, this is a simple example of social learning theory, and it's the idea that people learn by observing, imitating, and modeling the behaviors of others. For teachers, understanding and incorporating social learning theory in their teaching practice is key. So now that we've introduced social learning theory, let's take a closer look at where it came from. Social learning theory was developed by Albert Bandura in the 1970s. Bandura believed that learning happened through the observation of others. So how did social learning theory become so popular? It was seen as a shift from behaviorism, a theory that believes that behavior is learned through experience and can be changed through reward and punishment. Behaviorism was extremely popular in Bandura's time and it is still very popular today. And it's mainly because it's backed by observable results. But Bandura felt that there was just more to it, and so he blended the cognitive and social aspects to form his own approach. Bandura emphasized that individuals can learn behaviors just by observing others and noticing the consequences of their actions. If someone sees a behavior being rewarded, for example, a student being praised by the teacher for answering a question correctly or showing good behavior, they're more likely to imitate that behavior, and this process is known as vicarious reinforcement. On the other hand, if they observe their classmate facing negative consequences, such as being sent out of the classroom, they are more likely to avoid that behavior to avoid the same results, and this process is called vicarious punishment. Bandura gave a very famous example of this through his Bobo doll experiment in the 1960s. In this study, the children watched adults interact with an inflatable clown doll called Bobo. Some adults behaved aggressively by hitting the doll and shouting at it, while others acted calmly and ignored it. The results of this experiment were actually eye-opening. So the children who observed the aggressive behavior were more likely to imitate it. They would attack the doll in a similar way. However, those who observed non-aggressive behavior didn't act aggressively. This experiment showed how powerful observational learning can be and proved Bandura's point that children learn by watching and internalizing the actions of others, especially when they see those actions being rewarded. So there are four key steps to Bandura's social learning theory, and according to Bandura, if these four steps don't take place, social learning theory isn't effective. The first step is attention. The learners need to stay focused and be paying attention because if they are distracted, it can affect both the quality and the quantity of their learning. So, what can you do as the teacher to prevent this? The best way is to create an engaging environment for the learners, and this can be done by incorporating diverse learning styles, such as whole class discussions, student led sessions, etc. Really try to get the students involved and give them chances to lead their own learning. This will increase their attention. The second step is retention. Retention refers to children remembering what they've learned after observing a model. And this is a really, really important step because if the student can't remember what they've learned, they won't be able to reproduce it, leading us on to our third step, reproduction. Now, reproduction relies solely on attention and retention because after retaining the information, that's the only way that the learner can perform the behavior they've observed. Lastly, we have motivation. To follow any of these steps, the learners need to be motivated. So a good way to do this would be rewarding the learners, so vicarious reinforcement. This is a good way because it will increase their attention levels and increase their motivation. Once they see one of the students being rewarded, they will all want the same reward. So it will in turn increase their attention. So, how could social learning theory be applied in your classroom? There are multiple ways social learning theory can be applied, but I'm going to be talking through activities that you could possibly do. So, the first activity is a think, pair, share. As an example, I'm going to be using long division in maths. So, you're going to start by solving an example yourself to the whole class. As you are doing this, a great way to get the learners involved is by asking them questions such as, "Oh, so what do you think has to be done next?" and reward learners for their participation. Once you have thoroughly walked through an example with the class, assign them with different problems and ask them to solve them in pairs or groups using different strategies. This can be done for about 20 minutes. During this time, you can be walking around the classroom and assisting the learners where needed, but try your best not to intervene too much when the students are doing their tasks because you're trying to encourage them to work together and learn from each other. So after this, ask each group to come up and present their different strategies to the class. Encourage them to demonstrate their thinking process because by doing this, they are reinforcing their own learning. After they've presented, encourage their classmates to ask questions, encourage open discussion, because this will allow all the other students a variety of different methods of solving a specific problem. Because all learners are different, and some learners might find some strategies easier to follow than others, so this gives them a variety of strategies that they could possibly use. Another example I'm going to talk through is what social learning theory might look like during a science experiment. So, you as a teacher, you're going to start by gathering all the children around you so you can see everyone and everyone can see the experiment clearly. Start by asking predictive questions like, "Oh, so what do you think will happen if I mix these two substances together?" This is a good way to spark their curiosity and increase their attention levels because now they're going to know what will happen. So, to ensure the learners have retained the information, you can repeat the key steps and encourage the learners to discuss with each other. Now we move on to the reproduction stage. Split the class into small groups to practice the experiment. And I say this, it's good that the learners work in groups because if one or two of the learners, they're struggling or they've forgotten a step, their peers are there to support them. And then similar to the think, pair, share activity, provide positive reinforcement for effort and accuracy and encourage the learners to discuss what they have learned and observed. So, why use social learning theory in your teaching practice? Well, firstly, it increases learner engagement by encouraging active learning. Students aren't just learning by being given direct instructions from you, you're encouraging them to work collaboratively and learn from the people around them. Now, I guess a downside of social learning theory could be that to be effective, it does require strong classroom management because you need to be ensuring that positive behavior is being modeled. But Bandura has mentioned that a good way to do this is by praising and rewarding good behavior, and this will ensure that learners are modeling the positive behavior and avoiding the negative. Thirdly, learners will be less dependent on you because you're encouraging them to learn from each other, so they won't see you as the sole source of their knowledge. I mean, how good would it be not having multiple kids running up to you asking you to repeat the instructions you've already repeated a million times? Most important of all, you'll be helping the learners because you will be incorporating diverse learning methods which cater to all children. No one's left behind. And guys, that will be where I'm ending this podcast session. Thank you so much for listening. If you guys want any more information or another podcast about how to incorporate social learning theory or more examples, please let me know and I will do that. Thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.